Hi everybody, my name is Kaylee and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Okay everybody, happy Saturday. I am super excited. I've been working super hard on these upcoming videos for you guys, and I have a really long story time for you guys tomorrow for Storytime Smash Sunday, so be ready for that. And I know I forgot to put a picture of what my makeup look was supposed to be last time. This was what I was trying to recreate. See, like, I'll put these little notes in these videos, you know, and then I just completely forget. So yeah. But let's get into today's story time. I'm going to bring you guys up close. There we go. Okay, everybody, before we get into everything, I want to put a quick trigger warning in here. There will be talks of suicide, so if that in any way, shape, or form makes you uncomfortable, please wait until tomorrow's new video. Maybe skip out on this one. But other than that, I'm going to do my quick usual little rundown for those of you who may be new here. For most of the video, I'll be looking in this direction because my mirror's over here and I would like to see what I'm doing. I do tell these story times in a first person point of view, so if you don't like that, then you can leave.
There's the door. There's the door, bitch!
And these story times are sent in by anonymous people. Y'all, I'm actually so excited for today's story time. Like, it's super creepy. I usually hate like scary stories, but it's just like getting me into the Halloween mood. Like, okay. Anyways, okay, so story time about how my best friends tried to unalive me. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the breakdown of how my town was. So I lived in a very old and small town. Like, almost all of the buildings and houses were over around 80 years old. We still had a bunch of brick roads running through town. Also, most of the people that lived here have generations of family members that settled here years ago. Like, for example, my family. Now, my family and I lived about 25 minutes outside of town. One, because there were no places available to rent or buy in my hometown, or in my parents' hometown because I never lived there. And two, my grandmother had told my parents that when she passes away, she's gonna be leaving them the house, which my mom was super excited about because this house has been in her family for generations. Like, I'm pretty sure that my great-great-grandfather bought that house in like the 40s. Well, even though I lived 25 minutes outside of town, so aka 25 minutes away from my grandma's house as well, my parents decided that they were gonna put me in the school that was like 5 minutes away from my grandma's house because they knew that they had plans of moving there. Not only that, but they wanted me to be familiar with the area, so that way whenever we moved, it wasn't just like a drop me in the middle of a new town type of thing and let me figure out my own shit. Also, I've been going to the town's church since as long as I can remember, and I've spent almost every single summer at my grandma's since I was like 3. Mainly because most of my friends live there, obviously, considering I literally went to school there and I would go to church and I went to my grandma's every single summer. So I already had a life there. They also wanted me to go there during the summers because everybody who lived there was super involved in the community. Like, there were always activities for the kids during the summer because even though school would end, they would keep it open for summer activities. Like, you could sign up to be in a play, you know, you would go to school, help set up the stage, you know, like make the props, you know, like paint backgrounds, practice your lines. And then at the end of the summer, like, you would perform the play twice. Once in the morning and then once at night. That sounds so cute. Oh my god, like, I feel like that would be such a good idea for schools to start doing that. Like, keep it open during the summer and then, you know, like maybe like, that would just be such a good idea. I wish more schools would do that. Oh, and then if you didn't want to do the play, obviously, they turned half of the classrooms into rooms for other activities. Like, they had a science room, a robotics freaking thing, you know. There was a book club, all that fun shit. Anyway, so, you know, the town was pretty safe. You know, you had your occasional drug bust and the occasional pedos who would try to lure kids into their house, but that's about it.
Side eye. Side eye!
The fact that they said that's occasional, that is terrible. What is occasional about that? Anyways, and nobody new ever moved in because, as I said before, most of the people that lived there had already lived there basically forever. Anyway, so you guys get the idea. This town's small and it's fucking old, okay? That's what I could have just shortened that into. It's fucking old. But before we move forward, I'm gonna put in a map of what the town looked like. The person who sent this story time in also sent in like a picture of like a little map, but I feel like it was kind of hard to understand, so I made one that's kind of easier for people to understand. So if you're watching this, it's not that I didn't like your map, it's just that I thought that it was a little bit hard to understand. I'm sorry. Anyway, so here is the map. Now, up in the left corner, we have the church that everybody went to in town. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody. Like, the only reason why you weren't going to church was either 1, because you were too fucking old to get out of bed, or 2, you had work, or 3, you were in the hospital. Like, if it wasn't one of those, and you still weren't going to church, sis, you better have some explaining to do, because you are being shunned. Literally shunned. Which I know sounds like low-key super fucked up, but yeah. Anyway, so, church, top left of the map. My house was right between the school and the park. And then if you go down from the park and then take a left, there is Sadie and Rachel's house, who were my best friends. And then right behind them was the cemetery that was surrounded by woods. And then across the street from the cemetery was this lake. Now, if you look at the church and you go straight down from the church, you'll see there's a construction sign in the middle of the road. Take one last good look at the map before it comes down. Stay with me. By the way, stay with me, okay? I know that this is a little bit confusing right now, but stay with me. Now, that street got closed down back whenever I was probably like 7 years old, because although I said our town was pretty safe, there was one tiny part that was low-key super dangerous, and that was the woods next to the cemetery. Or pretty much surrounding the cemetery. Now, in these woods was a trail that was only probably about 2 or 3 miles long, and some people would go hiking on this trail. And when I say some, I mean like literally only 8 people. And they would go in a group because nobody wanted to go on this trail alone. Like, they would literally have like meetup days where they would go hiking. Because yeah, everybody was way too fucking scared to go by themselves or even really go near the woods. Or near that cemetery even. Like, my one friend Abigail, her and her family won't even go visit her grandma and her grandpa's grave because it's too close to the forest. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, Kaylee, get to the fucking point. Why is it so dangerous? Hold on. Give me a second, okay? I'm getting there. Hold on, hold on. So ever since my mom was a little kid, there have been over like 15 people that have gone missing in those woods. And every few years, whenever the lake floods, remains of these people who went missing are found washed up onto the streets or in the woods. And these people that would go missing were random. So nobody thought that there was like a serial killer out there. Like, it was men, women, kids, adults, old people. It didn't matter if you had short hair, long hair, blonde hair, brown hair, dark skin, light skin, blue eyes, brown eyes. It did not matter. There was no like pattern. The only thing that they all had in common was it seemed that like they all tried to unalive themselves. I'm not going to go into much detail about how you could tell that these people tried to unalive themselves because it's pretty gruesome, but just know that you could 100% tell that that's what they were trying to do. And some of them actually were successful. Well, 1 out of the 15 people who went missing looked like they had been bitten by an animal. So now everybody's saying that the reason why people have gone missing is because there's a family of bears out there and they come out at night to hunt and to eat these people and attack anybody who's hanging around there.
Be fucking for real.
Like, give me a fucking break. Anyway, so they ended up putting a curfew on that trail and nobody was able to go into those woods from dusk until dawn. And if you don't know what that means, dusk is like when the sun goes down, dawn is whenever the sun is rising. I don't want you guys to feel like I'm like treating you guys like you're dumb. You guys don't know what this stuff means, but like, I know that I have younger viewers, so I feel like this is stuff that I have to explain for some of them who might not know. So I don't want you guys to feel like that at all. Don't think that I'm like, you know, trying to be that bitch. But yeah, so if you already knew what it meant, that's fine. Anyways, but I found this excuse of bear attacks to be bullshit. Really, like, I found it to be bullshit. Because nobody has ever spotted any fucking bears in those woods. Also, nobody was dumb enough to go wandering into those woods at night, so I don't even really know why there was a curfew. To be honest, the only reason why there was a curfew was because there would be those kids that would be like, oh, the woods that are so scary, like, let's go and, you know, investigate, you know. Anyway, so yeah, nobody's ever spotted a bear in these woods, but you know how boys are. They hear that there's a pack of bears or there's something scary, so they're off to, you know, prove their masculinity by going and checking out whatever it is. Anyway, so yeah, the boys hear that there's like a pack of bears running around in the woods. So during hunting season, they're all excited to go and find these bears, but nobody's ever had any luck finding them. And I'm not gonna lie, like, these woods aren't huge. Like, it's not like a fucking forest of trees. It's literally just like a small wooded area on the side of a road. So it would not be hard to find these bears. Anyway, so yeah, nobody's ever found them because they probably don't fucking exist. And I know you guys are probably like, well, the bears could be hibernating. No. Listen, after this was confirmed as a, quote, bear, everyone in school from kindergarten through 12th grade was forced to take environmental safety classes, I think, shit, okay? We would talk about what to do if you see a bear, when they go into hibernation, you know, what bears are more dangerous, all that shit. Like, at this point in my life, I knew more about bears than I did humans, okay? And they usually don't go into hibernation until like November or December. And that one person that they found in like late January, early February, and everybody said that she'd only been dead a week. And bears usually don't come out of hibernation until like March. So yeah, unless she went and found these bears that nobody else has been able to find and woke them out of their sleep, it wasn't a fucking bear. Now, I'm not really the type to believe in like paranormal stuff, okay? It's really not my thing. But there were a ton of ghost stories surrounding the reason why these people had went missing as well. So this ties into why this road from the church to the cemetery was closed. So back whenever my grandmother was a child, there was an orphanage right next to the church, and there were about 11 children who were in this orphanage, and the nuns lived in the orphanage with these children. They would take care of them, you know. Well, I guess that one of the nuns was low-key a devil worshiper, of course.
Bruh.
But, of course, she hid it well. Nobody knew this. Until one night, she woke up all 11 children and convinced them to walk down the road to the cemetery. And, of course, these children, you know, they listen. These are like their parents. You know, the nuns, they've been taking care of them for a while. And my grandma said that half of these kids that were in this orphanage had been there for almost their whole lives. Because most of them, the mothers, would literally drop them off at the orphanage and just leave them there and never go back for them. Which my mom had told me was probably because, like, back then, you know, it was frowned upon to have a child out of wedlock. So, I think that's the word for it, right? Whenever, like, you have a child that you're not married. And yeah, I think that's what it is. But, so half of them will hide these pregnancies, and then, you know, they would just drop the kids off at the orphanage. Anyway, so yeah, she convinces the children to walk with her down to the cemetery, and she told them about how they needed to make a sacrifice.
We? Who's we?
So she had murdered all of the children, and then she unalived herself. The only boy to survive was a 7-year-old boy named Andrew, and he ran all the way home, aka to the orphanage, which was probably like a 20-minute walk. But yeah, he got there, he woke the other nuns up. Fast forward, they go down to the woods, they find all the children dead, like they're gone, in those woods, but they could not find the nun. So they went through the house, you know, the orphanage place, seeing if she might have tried to go back, but there was no sign of her. But whenever they went into the house, they found a crawl space in one of the rooms that had a dresser in front of it. So they thought that she might be hiding in there. Well, when they went into the crawl space, they found this altar where it seemed that she would worship the devil. And this place was tiny. Like it was like, you know, an attic kind of space that had like the triangle ceiling. Like you would have to crawl to go in there. You couldn't walk. Anyway, so they found like those like writings of the stars with the circle around them, you know, just a bunch of satanic symbols, you know, letters written in like a different language, you know. Yeah, nobody really talks about what else they found in there, but those are really the only things that I can remember my grandma telling me. So yeah, there's no sign of this nun anywhere. But now let me get to why that road is closed, because it's not only, that road isn't only closed because, you know, like that's where she led the children down to the cemetery, blah, 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 down to the woods to murder them. It was also because there was a trail of blood going like all down that road. It was awful. And that's whenever they decided to block it off. They were like, we don't want this connected to the church in any way, shape, or form. You know, like this is very, like we can't have this negativity surrounding the church. So yeah, they decided to block it off. Oh, and then the day after, whenever the police went there to search the house, again, it had caught on fire. And it almost spread to the church. Now, Andrew had only talked about it twice after this. Apparently the blood going down the road was from this girl. She was a little bit older. I want to say that she was probably like 12 or 13. Obviously, she knew this was not right. You know, like she knew that she did not want to be sacrificed in the middle of the fucking woods near the cemetery because this batshit crazy nun decides that they need to be sacrificed for whatever reason. Like, bitch, go grab a fucking goat. Like, why the kids?
Wait, who?
I don't actually mean that about the goats. It's just what I see in the movies whenever they're sacrificing an animal or some shit. But like, bruh, not the kids. Like, she really said fuck them kids. Anyway, so yeah, there's a 13-year-old girl and she obviously is not, she's not putting up with the shit. She's like, no, you're fucking psycho. I don't want to do this. So then the nun literally like fucking ties her up and brings her out the house. Like, she could still walk, but like she had like her hands like, you know, tied up. Well, then this girl starts to scream and the nun, she hit her in the head with a hammer. Yeah, that's what she did. So yeah, she did that before they started walking to the woods, and she literally dragged her from the church all the way down to the woods. And whenever Andrew had talked to, you know, people about this, like I said, he only talked about it like once or twice. Once to the priest, and then, you know, once to the police. My grandma was very close with the priest as well, so, you know, that's how she kind of found out about this shit. But he had said that, like, you know, he's never seen like this nun like this. Like, this nun was always super quiet. She really was never outspoken. You know, all the other nuns were kind of, you know, the ones that would like were like more in charge, I guess, you know, if that makes sense. Like, this one kind of just kept to herself, you know, would just follow along. But this night he said that you could just like, the vibe was awful. Like, you could just tell that there was like something evil lurking around, because when she would look at you, it literally felt like she had no soul or anything. But Andrew had actually unalived himself 3 years later because of how traumatic the experience was. Like, I mean, my thing is, you can imagine, you grow up with these kids in a foster care, you know, they're like your family. And then all of a sudden, they're all done. And not only that, but like, this nun thought that he was unalived. Like, she thought that she had done the job to all the kids and shit like that. So that's whenever she, you know, unalived herself. So he watched all of them. It's fucking awful. R.I.P. to Andrew and all of those children. That is freaking terrible. So anyways, that is why that street is closed. And my older sister, who we're going to call Vicky, she has this friend who we are going to call Ben. And this was after we had moved into the house in town. We're going to fast forward to then. My parents were over at Rachel's house because Rachel, Sadie, and I, we were all best friends, but our parents were also really good friends as well. So, you know, like, they would go over there, you know, and shit like that. But at my house, Vicky, Ben, and a few of their other friends were all having a fire, and they start talking about the cemetery. And I had only heard about this like cemetery in the woods from my grandma. My parents didn't want to talk about it with me. Obviously, you know, they don't want their child to be scared. Also, I think that they also thought that it would keep me away from the woods if I just didn't know anything about it, which, I mean, y'all don't have to fucking tell me twice. The story that I heard, no. Absolutely not. Anyway, so Ben was talking about how the one night, him and two of his friends went to go and check out the woods in the cemetery. They wanted to investigate, you know, because they didn't believe the hype about the stories or the bears. Like I said earlier, they're boys. So whenever they went to the woods, they took the one trail that had caution tape around like these two trees in front of the trail. And the reason why there was caution tape there was because, like I said before, there would sometimes be flooding from the lake, and, you know, usually there would be bodies that would be washed up into the woods or on that road. And of course, them not believing any of these stories, you know, they're gonna take that way because, you know, they want to see if there's any remains of people who've passed. around there. I feel like this just further proves that, like, you know, I don't want any of the men to take offense to this because, you know, we love y'all if you're watching this. But, like, women low-key just have a little bit more of common sense when it comes to this shit. Like, stay away from the caution tape, okay? Like, this reminds me of Scary Movie. Like, you know the funny Scary Movie? I've never watched any of the real ones, but I remember watching, like, the parody ones, you know, where the girl, she runs up and there's a sign saying, go this way for the police station, and then go this way, the killer's over here. What does she do? She stands there, she's like, I'm gonna go this way, towards the killer. Like, be so for real. Anyway, so, you know, they're talking about this, and they said that, like, about 10 minutes into their walk on the path, you know, they're joking about how everybody's delusional, there's nothing even there. So, you know, they're talking about how nothing probably ever happened in these woods. The only reason why, you know, they're told to stay out of them is because it would be a great place for, you know, kids to throw parties and throw some ragers, because it was very far away from everything. Like, the police station was up near the church, and if you go deep enough into the woods, yeah, that's pretty much all. Anyway, so, you know, he says that they're leaving the woods. They decide to roll up a blunt and walk back home. Well, when they're leaving, somehow all of them get split up, and they're all yelling each other's names, trying to find one another. So, you know, while they're yelling to each other, one of them's like, let's just meet at the front, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, they had just smoked a lot. They were all saying that they were kind of paranoid, but, like, everything they swear was real. Like, they swear by it. Which, honestly, I believe them, because guys are more of the type that'll be like, oh, no, nothing happened, you know, like, you know, there was nothing even in those woods, blah, 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 blah. But they said they started to hear a woman screaming, and it wasn't like a fun, happy scream. It was like a scream for help. And, you know, I guess that they were hearing whispers telling them that they should unalive themselves, or no, that was only Ben. His other friends had ended up, you know, finding their way out of the woods, but Ben was the only one who, like, could not find his way out for the life of him. And he said that eventually, he doesn't know if it's because he got too far into the woods, because, like I said, there were only some people who had went into these woods. Like, you know, there were only those few people that loved to go hiking on the trail, you know, like, they had never been really in the woods. They don't know how to get out, you know, but his friends made their way out. He did not. Anyway, so, you know, Ben's saying, he's like, yeah, you know, like, I heard, like, this voice just telling me to do, like, these awful things, you know, like, I should just unalive myself, da-da-da.
Oh, hell no. I don't even want to do no research on that shit.
Well, I guess at this point, Ben's friends had been sitting outside of the woods for, like, half an hour before they finally decided to go and, knock on somebody's door so they could call the police. So the police go into the woods to find Ben, and he wasn't even in the woods at this point. Like, he was, so on the lake there were rocks, okay? Like, there were, like, some huge rocks that made, like, almost a 10-foot drop, I would say. It was supposed to be, like, you know, something decorative to make the lake look nice and make it look more appealing, and, you know, less like these rumors that had went around of it being dangerous, but it looked like shit. Anyways, we're not focusing on the fact that the town looks like shit. We're focusing on the fact that he's standing on these rocks over the lake, and he's standing right at the edge. And the lake wasn't that deep. Like, if you were to jump from those rocks, you would definitely break something or be dead. Yeah, like, it was not safe at all. Anyway, so, you know, he's talking and he's like, yeah, like, I completely blacked out. He said that he didn't even know why he was standing on the rocks at the edge, but he completely snapped out of it whenever the police found him. He said that he was super confused whenever, like, the cops found him. He was, like, so stunned that he actually almost fell into the lake. He was like, I don't know how I got up there, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then the cops are, like, debating whether they should take him to a fucking mental hospital or not, because obviously it looks like he's trying to unalive himself. Anyways, anybody who has snuck into those woods has, like, a similar story to him about how they've, like, heard voices, you know, telling them to hurt themselves in some way or hurt other people around them. Like, I'm pretty sure that one man who snuck into those woods actually went to a mental hospital after, because he said that, like, his thoughts were scaring him. Like, he was really scaring himself in there because he thought that he was hearing voices and shit like that. That is, like, freaking terrifying. No thanks. Okay, so now that you guys know the background of the town, we can get into this situation that happened. So whenever I was probably like 13 years old, Sadie and Rachel would usually come to my house. I usually wouldn't go to theirs because there was more stuff to do at my house. You know, I lived right next to the park, so we would usually just go there and hang out, you know, with some of our other friends. But they had told me that they were building a house right outside of the woods that are near the cemetery. And we were super confused because we're like, okay, who the fuck is building their house there? Like, everybody knows that's not where you want to build a house. That's not where you want to be. Like, these people had clearly never been here or never talked to anybody who's even lived in this town, because clearly they did not know the history behind those woods. So for the next year, there was talk all around town of these new people who were supposed to be moving here. Like, there were rumors that this couple wanted to completely tear down those woods and build an apartment building, or just move in and try to change our whole town, because the house that they were building was fucking huge. Literally huge. Like, these people must have had a F ton of money, because Sadie, Rachel, and I, we would always, you know, we would go down there to check on, you know, the house that was being built. And in the back there was like a waterfall, like with a huge pool, and they were actually going to pay to redo the road leading from the church to those woods, which, if I'm being completely honest, nobody liked that idea. And the only time that we saw these people was whenever they were coming to check on, like, you know, stuff at the house, of course, which was surprisingly very often. So we all thought that they had to have like lived around, you know, like right outside of town or something. Anyways, it was a man and a woman with their 6 children, which we soon found out that 2 of the kids were their actual children, and then the rest were adopted. So when I had turned 14, these people finally moved in, and they moved in on a Friday, so we were expecting to see them at church Sunday. Because my thing is like, also, you don't move to a town like this if you're not religious, you know, like it was a very religious town, and you could tell like just by driving through, you know. But none of them came to church, so everybody's gossiping about why they skipped out on church, you know. But then you have the logical people saying like, listen, they just moved in, they have 6 kids, like, chill, all right, like, just chill out a little bit, okay, you know, like, I'm sorry, but if I have 6 kids, nobody better come knocking on my door asking why I'm not going to church on Sunday, like, especially if I just moved into a brand new house. No. Anyways, so the one day while Sadie and Rachel are at my house, my mom comes over to me and she goes, why don't you go invite the new kids to come and hang out with you guys? And we're all just looking at each other like, what the fuck is this woman talking about? Because my family was super religious, and they were the type to be like, they didn't come to church, I don't want you around that kid. I don't want you around her kids. No. They don't have the same beliefs as us, clearly. No. Not happening. Anyway, so yeah, I was pretty annoyed about this because, yeah, they lived right near the cemetery. I did not want to walk over to this cemetery. But after arguing with my mom for about 10 minutes, she was like, I'm not asking anymore. You're gonna go and you're gonna invite those kids to come hang out with you guys. So we walked down to their house, and I had told you guys earlier that this house was huge, but it was also super creepy. Like, it kind of fit the aesthetic of being near these woods. The whole outside of the house was black. They had this super long driveway going up to the house, but before you could even get up to the front door, like get up the driveway, they have like these creepy gates. And before we'd even get up the hill, like Rachel, Sadie, and I are just staring at each other like, should we just say that we came and nobody was home? But then we remembered that everybody in this town knew everybody, and if my mom heard that I didn't come and try to knock on the door, she was gonna be pissed. To be honest, I don't even know what the point of having these gates was, because like, we literally were just like, we were able to just walk in. Like, there was no point in having these gates there. Maybe they wanted it to look like it was a secure house, but it definitely was not. Anyway, so we go and we knock on the door, and this girl who was dressed all in black with super dark features opens the door. Like, she had, her fingernails were painted black, her hair was black, she had very dark makeup, Not gonna lie, she low-key looked creepy as fuck, but I'm not gonna judge a book by its cover. Anyway, so yeah, she answers the door and we're like, hey, we wanted to know if you want to come and hang out with us, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, sure. She didn't even go and ask her parents. So I asked her, I'm like, do you need to tell your mom or your dad? And she was like, no, they don't care. And we're like, okay, well, weird. So, you know, fast forward, we're making small talk with her, asking her where she's from, you know, how she likes it here so far. She starts saying how boring it is here, which was annoying because, you know, she's low-key like insulting where we live. So, you know, we're trying to convince her that our town is actually pretty cool, even though it really wasn't. But yeah, no, we were talking about how there's way more to do than just go to church and go to school here. And that's whenever Rachel brings up the fucking woods, of course. And she's like about to start talking about the cemetery and the woods, and that's whenever I'm like, Rachel, shut up. Because I didn't want Rachel to scare this girl about where she lives, you know, like nobody needs that. But she was the complete opposite of scared. Like, she was really excited about this, and excited is literally an understatement. She was like, okay, so why don't we just go there? And Rachel's like, girlie, did you not hear anything that I just said about those woods being haunted and how people have literally died in there? Oh, and by the way, we're gonna call this girl Kara. So Kara's like, yeah, I heard you and I think that we should go explore it. Besides, you guys said that the trail is open during the day, and from what I can see, the sun is shining bright. So let's go before it gets too late. So Rachel, Sadie, and I look at each other and we're like, oh fuck, what did we do? No, what did Rachel do? Not gonna lie, Rachel was not the brightest out of the group. Seriously. So, you know, I give Rachel this dirty look because why the fuck would you tell the girl who looks like creepy as fuck about the woods?
What was the reason? What was the reason, bitch?
What was the point? So, you know, we agree to go into the woods with Kara. And by the way, Sadie and Rachel's mom, like I said, my parents didn't like to talk about the woods with me because they didn't want to scare me, and they just thought that if they didn't talk about it, I wouldn't go near there. Because, you know, whenever you tell a kid not to do something, they're more inclined to want to do it. That was like their thought process. But Rachel and Sadie's mom, every day that we would hang out, they would be like, their moms would be like, don't go near those fucking woods. And we always listened to them. Anyway, so we go into these woods and Kara goes, oh my god, guys, do you feel that? Like, girl, what the fuck could you possibly be feeling?
Oh, you want to get fucked up?
So we're like, no, why? And she's like, I feel an evil spirit around here. And that's whenever Rachel, Sadie, and I look at each other like, bro, this bitch is fucking psychotic. So then I'm like, oh, then we should probably go. Like, this isn't safe. And she's like, no, it's like, I feel it. It's trying to reach out to me. And then she's like, I have a Ouija board back at my house. We should go get it. Or if you want, you guys can stay here and I'll just go grab it. And we all look at her like, bitch, what is wrong with you? And she's like, we need to get it now. So then Sadie goes, she's like, no, we don't play with that stuff. Like, it's super fucking dangerous. And then Kara goes, oh my god, you guys are pussies. Your parents just told you this shit just to control you. Like, there's really nothing dangerous about any of this stuff. My parents tried to do the same thing to me, and it wasn't because they were worried about my safety. It was literally just because they wanted to control me. Like, here's my thing. Sis, you just said there's nothing dangerous about any of this stuff. 2 minutes before this, you're like, oh my god, guys, there's an evil spirit. I feel it. It's trying to reach out to me. Pick one. Pick one. So I look at Rachel and Sadie and I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not staying here for this. Like, I'm going home. And Rachel and Sadie, they look at Kara and they're like, yeah, sorry. We're gonna go home. She's like, all right, well, if you guys ever decide to change your mind, you know where to find me. So, you know, fast forward to Wednesday, Rachel and Sadie are walking up to my house, per usual, to meet so that way we can all go to school together. And they're like, oh my god, you missed it. And I'm like, what did I miss? Like, it's fucking 7:30 in the fucking morning. What could have possibly happened at 7:30 in the morning that I don't fucking know about? Especially in this small ass fucking boring town. So that's whenever they're like, OMG, you need to see what Kara's wearing. It's so bad. Like, she's probably gonna get kicked out of school. So while we're standing outside of my house, I can kind of see Kara's siblings walking up the hill because the street on their side of the house still wasn't fixed yet. But I couldn't see Kara, and I'm like, bro, they're all dressed normal. What are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, but Kara's not. So right now I'm picturing Kara wearing something provocative, you know, like short shorts or a crop top or, you know, some fishnet leggings. So then they're like, okay, well, just let's sit inside and wait until she comes so that way, you know, like you can see what she's wearing. So we go and we sit inside of my house and we wait for Kara to walk up the hill. And that's when I see her wearing all black, but she has chains on her jeans. She's wearing this black shirt with a red upside down cross on it. She's wearing an upside down cross necklace, earrings to match, and black shoes with like red writing on it, and like it looked like blood splatters, you know. Definitely not what I had in mind whenever they said that she was dressed really bad, like the kind of bad where she would get kicked out of school. And remember how I told you that everybody in my town was super religious? Like I've mentioned it probably 40 fucking times. Yeah, well obviously our school was super religious as well. Like it was a part of the church. So this was not going to go over well with anybody. So yesterday before we left Kara in the woods, we were like, hey, would you want to walk with us to school in the morning? And she's like, yeah, sure. So we just told her to knock on Rachel's door in the morning because Rachel's house was closest to hers. So fast forward the next day, she walks up to Rachel's doorstep and Rachel's mom, you know, looked out the door to see, you know, looked out the window to see who it was, and she sees Kara there. And when she saw what Kara was wearing, she looked at Rachel and Sadie, and Rachel's mom goes, you guys are not walking to school with her. Absolutely fucking not. I don't want y'all anywhere near her. And then she goes, I have to call Sadie's mom right now. And then, you know, she calls Sadie's mom, updates her on what the fuck is going on, and then Sadie's mom calls my mom, and then my mom calls a few other of her friends. So Kara stood outside of Rachel's house for a few minutes. Like I low-key feel bad, but then she just walked back to her house. And whenever we were talking to Kara, she said that she wasn't really close to any of her siblings. She felt like they just never understood her and they just never accepted her. So that's why she didn't want to walk to school with them. Well, fast forward, we're all at school, and what do you know? Sadie and Rachel were right. Kara gets pulled out of class and you can hear the principal talking to her in the hallway, and he's like, you either need to go home and get changed or you're not coming back. So she literally just never came back. Like her mom started homeschooling her. Like we didn't see her for a month after that. But after that, Sadie, Rachel, and I started hanging out less and less. And I was super weirded out by this because they weren't really coming to my house after school anymore. Sometimes they weren't even coming to church. So my mom called their moms to find out what the hell was going on. And apparently Rachel and Sadie were hanging out with Kara a lot more. Like they were also starting to do a lot of bad shit. They were sneaking out at night. They were starting to dress like her. It was just super weird. But I ended up making really good friends with Kara's older brother, Noah, and he was super nice, super funny. He was like 2 years older than me, and he was definitely the complete opposite of Kara. So I started going over his house after school, and when I would go over there, I would run into Rachel and Sadie. I felt so awkward because they just cut me out and replaced me with Kara. They didn't even ask me to come and hang out with all three of them. And when they would see me over there, they wouldn't even say hi to me. They would just look at me, walk away, and go hang out with Kara. Half the time though, when I would walk in, Kara would be like, okay mom, we're going to the woods, bye. But whenever I would go over to her house, I was super surprised because her family actually was not weird like I pictured. Like I pictured like I was gonna walk into some like fucking gothic house, you know, with like some family that was fucking creepy, but they were actually super normal. So I'm telling you right now, after meeting a girl like Kara, you're like, all right, she has to be the way that she is because the rest of her family's fucked up in the head or something. But I could not have been more wrong. Her mom and her dad were regular working people who loved their children, and they just didn't have as many rules for their kids as our parents had for us. But I did end up asking Noah about Kara because I was curious, and he was like, yeah, before we adopted her, she lived with her grandma who was like super into witchcraft, but her grandma ended up unaliving herself because she believed that if she did that, Kara would be blessed with wealth and whatever else she wanted. And we've tried bonding with her, and by we, he meant like, you know, his siblings, and he was like, but it's been hard because she's more into like ghosts and like weird evil shit. And he was like, to be honest, I keep my distance because she low-key creeps me out. Like, same. But he was also telling me that like, you know, his other siblings he didn't have that problem with. So it wasn't just because like he was one of their real kids, so it wasn't even like the fact, it was the fact that she was adopted. So fast forward later on that night, Rachel and Sadie leave, and I decide to leave like right after them because I needed to talk to them about what the fuck was going on. So they go out the house. I tell Noah, I'm like, peace, gotta go. And then I run and catch up with them, and I'm like, hey guys, and then they just look at each other and they awkwardly say hi back to me. And that's when I asked them, what the hell is going on? I'm like, you guys just cut me out of your lives and completely cut me off, didn't even tell me what I did. And I thought that it was just because you guys have been busy, you know, or whatever. But then I figure out it's because you guys are hanging out with Kara 24/7. Like, I didn't even hear it from you guys, I heard it from your moms. And they're like, actually, it's literally not even that. It's just that we actually kind of like Kara now. And we found out that we're low-key into the stuff that she's into.
You lying? Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, why does that mean you guys had to cut me off? Like, what if I like the same things that she does? And they were like, but you don't. And I'm like, but what if I did? And they're like, well, it's not only that, it's like hard because you don't live near us, you know? Like, we all live close to each other. And I'm like, y'all are literally a 10-minute walk away. Be so for real. Be so fucking for real. But no, I'm like actually super offended at this point, because is that your only reason for cutting me off? Like, the fact that I don't live close to you guys and the fact that you're afraid that I won't like the same things that she does? So fast forward, you know, at this point, I'm feeling like a lot of things are just going wrong in my life. I haven't been able to focus on school because of my social life and just knowing the fact that my friends literally cut me off for some fucking weird bitch who just moved into the neighborhood. And not only that, Noah and I just kind of fell off. Like, we just stopped talking to each other out of nowhere, to be honest. It was more so him. Like, I asked if I could come over his house after school, you know, so we could like study and hang out, and he was just like, no, sorry, I have too much to do today. And then like I asked a few more times and then I got the same excuse, so I just stopped asking, period. Well, fast forward to November. At this point, Kara and her family probably lived in the town for like 7 months, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Sadie and Rachel start talking to me again. Like, the one day they just randomly knocked on my door and they're like, hey, do you want to hang out? And it was like nothing ever happened. Like, for like the next month and a half, we were all hanging out like old times, doing the same shit that we used to do. And I tried asking them what happened between them and Kara, but they just said they didn't want to talk about it. So I had a feeling that it was something pretty bad. Well, one day they come over and they're like, oh yeah, like we made up with Kara, you know, and we want to go to the woods tonight. And I'm like, you guys, I don't think I want to do that. And they're like, well, we want you to feel included and feel like we're not just cutting you off for her, so we want to include you. And that's whenever I agreed to go to the woods with them, and it's like around 1 in the morning, so of course it's just fucking annoying. We all sneak out of my house because we were having a sleepover at my house, and we go to Kara's house, and when we go there, we go to the back of her house and we start walking through the woods. And that's whenever Sadie, Rachel, and Kara are acting super sus. Like, while we're all walking, they're all three whispering to each other, and I'm like, oh, like, what did you say? And then like they're like, nothing, don't worry about it. And then they laugh. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? You guys are acting weird. So that's whenever Kara goes, guys, we haven't shown her our ritual yet. And I'm like, what ritual? And they're like, and she goes, the one that we created. So all three of us sit in a circle, and Kara's like, Sadie, Rachel, and I are so close because we have a blood bond. Like, we're blood sisters now. And if you're gonna be a part of this, then you need to be one too. Like, this is a sisterhood. So then I'm like, okay. And then Kara goes and she cuts an old scar that she has on her. She cuts it open, and then Rachel and Sadie do the same thing. And at first when she says this, I'm like, okay, ha ha ha, like, we're just gonna spit on our hands and do a handshake, you know, one of those stupid things. But no y'all, it was not that at all. So yeah, she gives me the knife, and then she's like, we need our blood to go into this little cup so we can all drink it.
I swear to God, I ain't mad, cause I be doing foul shit. But that's fouler. But you did a fucked up bird thing.
And I'm like fucking shitting myself. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Y'all are being weird as hell. But me not wanting to lose my friends again, I go along with it and I drink it. Yes, I drink it. It was foul. But you know, she was nice enough to bring band-aids for us to put over the cuts. You know, she was nice enough to do that. But then Kara pulls out 3 water bottles that are filled with vodka, and she's like, each of us needs to drink these. And I'm like, why is there only 3? Like, why don't you have one? And she's like, because I drink mine on the way here. So I drink this bottle filled with vodka, and when I'm done, Kara, she's building a fire, and we're all sitting there staring into this fire, and then she looks at Rachel and Sadie and she's like, girls, it's time. And I'm getting super scared. You know how whenever like you're around people and like they're all having a conversation and you just know you're not a part of that conversation? It was one of those moments. So you know that they know what's going on, but you don't have any fucking clue what's about to happen. But I've been feeling like this the whole entire night. So that's whenever Kara pulls out 2 knives. She hands one to Rachel, and then she hands one to Sadie, and then she pulls out this way bigger one that was obviously hers, and then they're all just staring at me. So I stand up and I start to like slowly back away, and I'm really feeling that vodka. Like, that shit fucking hit me me like straight in the fucking head. But as soon as she pulled out those fucking knives, I literally, it's like I fucking snapped out of it, back to reality, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? While I'm like standing up and backing away. And Kara's like, listen, it'll be easier if you just try not to run. And I look at Rachel and I'm like, Rachel, what the fuck is going on? Because Rachel and I have been friends longer than, you know, Sadie and I. Like, Sadie and I have only been friends for probably like the past 4 years. But Rachel, her and I have been friends since fucking kindergarten. And then they start running at me with the knives. Literally fucking running at me with the knives. And Kara was surprisingly fast for a heavy girl, okay? And I'm not even saying that in any sort of fucking way, okay? So before you start, you know, saying that I'm body shaming her, I thought that I could get out of that situation because I thought I had a one-up on her. But I didn't, of course, because why would I have a one-up on her? Why? So I'm running, this bitch grabs me by the hair, pulls me down, and she tries to stab me. She did stab me right in the arm, but my adrenaline is pumping, and I get up and I punch this bitch in the face, and then I start running again. And since I knew that Kara's family was pretty normal, and like everybody else knew that she was like a little bit fucking screwed up in the head, I'm like, okay, I don't have nothing to worry about. I'm gonna run to her house since it's the closest to me, and then I'm gonna tell her parents what the fuck is going on. So I run up the back porch, and then I go and I'm like knocking on the fucking back glass door, and like they're all, you know, trailing behind me. They're a little bit further behind, you know. But as I'm banging on the window, I'm looking in. Her family is all already standing in the fucking kitchen, and they're just staring at me. And they're all, like, literally, I'm telling you, it was like a scene out of a fucking scary ass movie. Like, I was fucking terrified. So then I realized these motherfuckers aren't gonna help me. I gotta go. We gotta go. You know, y'all, I'm not gonna lie. If that was me, I would have pronounced myself dead. Like, I actually probably would have had a heart attack. Like, I would have pronounced myself dead right there and laid down. Yeah, and just died, literally. So I run home, I'm banging on the door. My mom's like, what the hell are you doing outside at this time of night? And then she sees that there's a fucking knife sticking out of my arm. So we call the police. The police go looking for Kara, Rachel, and Sadie. And when they go to Kara's family's house, guess what? They're gone. They are gone and nowhere to be found. They couldn't even find Rachel either. The only one that they found was Sadie, and Sadie was in the woods, and I think that she was like passed out from like alcohol poisoning or something like that. All I know is that, like, yeah, she was pretty roughed up, but they could not find Rachel or Kara's family. I tried to stay away from that part of town as much as possible. Sadie's mom signed her into a mental institution because after that she was just kind of going like crazy. Like, she had tried to stab her parents while they were sleeping and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, you know, just another night, just another day.
It just was not good at all. But I swear that like a few years after that, I saw Rachel walking around town. And anytime that I had like driven past Kara's old house with my family, it was very far away from the road, so you couldn't really see too much. But I swear that like I've seen some of her family members standing in the windows sometimes. Pretty creepy. Okay, everybody, that is the end of today's story time. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, maybe hit that subscribe button down below. And if you want to know whenever I post my next video, make sure to click that bell. Also, if you guys want to send in your anonymous story time, or you want to know how to send in your anonymous story time, make sure to click the links down below in the description. But other than that, I will see you guys tomorrow with a new story time.